All right, a lot to get into. Joining me now on set is the former Texas Republican Governor Rick Perry. And I asked him ahead of time, Mr. Secretary or Governor? He said it will always be Governor. I always wonder which title takes precedent and which one you hold on to for the rest of your life.
Yeah, well, George Bush called me right after, in June of 2001. He had been in office for about 5 months. And he said, Perry, you know, Governor is still the greatest job in the world.
Even after
very
being,
true.
Even after being Secretary of Energy, running the Department of Energy. Well, then, Governor Perry, I want to talk a minute about illegal immigration. It is interesting. I think we could argue the left has always had somewhat of an open borders philosophy, but that doesn't mean every Democrat has believed that to be the case. I'm sure you had to have some bipartisan approach here in the state of Texas, or maybe even when you got to D.C. a quaint 10 years ago. But now it's a huge partisan divide to the point we see what we saw today. Democrats standing out there protesting, grandstanding in front of a facility.
Yeah, and I really don't know what their thought process is from the standpoint of breaking the law. Because, I mean, literally, this is breaking the law. I mean, the rule of law doesn't matter anymore to some on the left. And in the state of Texas, I will suggest to you there are still a number of Democrats, people that still call themselves Democrats, who believe in the rule of law. And they don't believe in this open border. And I think it's one of the history will show one of the great mistakes that the Democrat Party made in the early parts of the 21st century was this concept of having open borders, of being so all in with the immigrant world out there. I think it's going to cost them not only congressional seats, I think it's going to cost them governorships, I think it's going to cost them city council races, mayor's races, because the American people understand, and particularly the Hispanics in the state of Texas, as you saw, a lot of counties that have historically been blue in Texas or voted for President Trump because he understood the rule of law when it came to this issue of immigration and having a strong immigration policy. We want people to come, but they need to come in an orderly, thoughtful, lawful way. We want you to come, participate in this great economy that we have here in the state of Texas, let's say. But the radical Democrats who are for open borders, I think that from a long-term impact politically, this is poisonous.
I agree.
And it's corrosive. And they will pay a huge price for it. They already have. I mean, I will suggest to you that's one of the reasons that President Trump was so successful in Texas and in turn in his national election.
It's hard to win an election telling the American people that you serve the interests of people who are not American. And I agree with you. That's going to pay the price at every level of elected office. So I have a couple of things that I'm excited to have you in studio to talk about here today. One of which is a bill that just passed or is advanced in Texas. But it is something that I think every state in this country is thinking about, and that is, will entities or foreign governments from certain countries get to own land and assets here in America? So Texas is working on a bill that's going to preclude Iran, China, North Korea, and a few others from owning land in the state of Texas.
Yeah, and it makes sense. When you think about these countries have shown that they don't respect our rule of law. I mean, China's been stealing our technology for decades. I mean, this is not something new. And the idea that they're coming in here and we're seeing them buy land within close proximity of military bases, and the leadership in the state of Texas said, that's enough. You know what? We're going to put some restrictions into place. And if you are from these countries, you're going to have to jump through some special hoops. And I totally agree with that. Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, all of those have shown us clearly that they don't respect our governance, they don't respect our rule of law, and they will do whatever they can to steal technology, to steal whatever they think they need.
And it's not just theoretical, without revealing anything classified from your time in Washington, D.C. You have experience of knowing that some of these have used businesses or land as Trojan horses to come in and then begin their operations in the U.S.
And I'll give you an example that's public now about transformers that were developed, they were produced in China, shipped in, and this was at the very end of my tenure as Secretary of Energy. We took control of those, brought them into our labs, our national lab. This one happened to be in Sandia, and took it apart. And what we found is there were back doors in there technologically built in there so that the Chinese, in this case, could use them to penetrate our grid. When Biden came into office, he did away with what then President Trump stopped those from coming in. And I mean, and Biden did away with the executive order that Trump had put in place, probably not even knowing what it did. But Trump did it; it had to be bad.
Right.
And that's
incredibly scary to get into our grid.
And there were like hundreds of these came in the last administration during Biden, allowing them to produce those and sell them in the United States. Now, that's a great example of a couple things. Number one, when the president is talking about reshoring, bringing these jobs back in, we lost a lot of those jobs to China for things like transformers.
Right.
We need to be building those back in the United States so that we know for a fact that our grid's going to be stable and you're not going to have a foreign bad actor in there with the ability to penetrate into our electrical grid at some time in the future.
You want to stop at number one? I gave you a hard time earlier. You said it offers up a couple of things. Number one.
I'm not going to go more than
I told the governor a little bit earlier that one of my great communication lessons of all times was unfortunately given by him.
Awesome.
Don't go to 3 points. But you are championing something incredibly important. We'll make this number one, okay? Yeah. We have a mutual friend. Two mutual friends, the Luttrell brothers, Marcus and Morgan Luttrell, who have served this country as you have, which we appreciate. And I saw Marcus, I'd say a week and a half ago. He was at a Navy SEAL Foundation here in Dallas, and he had a weight lifted off of him. He looked happy. He looked different than he has in public appearances in the past. And he told everyone why. Not that night, but he told us, in fact, in front of Congress at a hearing in April. Watch.
When I got hurt, I got introduced to opioids. And then after all my surgeries, I didn't want to take them, but the doctor would make me take them to keep me down. Well, I didn't know that there was a hook inside that thing that would get a hold of me that developed an appetite inside of me for it. Same way with the alcohol. That's kind of how I masked my pain. I didn't know anything about Ibogaine. What I can tell you is when I took that and I fell asleep, when I woke up the next morning, I not only didn't drink anymore, I didn't chew Copenhagen anymore, I didn't have opioid addiction anymore, I didn't have an appetite for it at all. I found my spirit in there.
Now, Governor, I don't know anything about Ibogaine, but I know that man is different. Tell me about Ibogaine.
Well, let me just back up a little bit. Marcus lived with us for 2.5 years, from 07 to 09. And we chased a lot of rabbits, so to speak, went to a lot of places, worked with him. And he got better, but he still had the damage from the post-traumatic stress, what we do to our war fighters. I mean, we've been at war for 20 years. A lot of these kids have been deployed 10, 12, 13 times. I mean, it's just stunning. And it has an effect on them. The chemical change in the brain from going into combat changes you. You cannot go in and come back the same person you were. And so what we're finding is that this plant medicine, this psychoactive plant medicine from Gabon in Africa, we've known about it since the 60s, but it was a Schedule I drug. Nixon put a lot of different drugs on to Schedule I and took them off, even to do therapy or to do any type of clinical trials and what have you. And about 7 years ago, we started sending some warfighters down to Mexico because it is a legal compound there to be treated. So the point is this works, and it works stunningly well. Stanford did a clinical trial on it, and the results are
and there's a push to
fascinating.
make it accessible here now in the U.S.
In the state of Texas, there's a House bill that's going to pass, Lord willing, and we're going to do clinical trials in the state of Texas and save a huge number of lives.
Governor, it's great to see you again. It's been some years. I really enjoyed this long conversation.
God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.